Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's event of Developer Stories Africa. We will be starting in a few minutes, a few seconds. So, first of all, let me introduce myself and then what Developer Stories Africa is all about. Then I'll give a chance to my fellow co-hosts to introduce themselves as we wait for this guest to join us. So, I'm Kibedia Philas, the leader of Developer Stories Africa. I love tech communities. Yeah, I think that's all about me. So what is Developer Stories Africa? So Developer Stories Africa is a community of tech enthusiasts and developers. So whereby we host different developers to share their journey in tech from the first time, like when they got involved in tech up to the place they are right now. They share their experiences, their opinions on how to navigate through the tech career, and from there, I believe all of us we can pick a lesson or two. Yeah, but basically, this is not for like motivational purposes, but like for sharing lessons where yeah, one has learned through his journey. So I think from there, I have my fellow co-hosts, so they can introduce themselves. So Pam, you can be the first one to introduce yourself.
Hello, Pam, and thank you everyone for coming today. I'm Pamela Chimute from Developers Stories Africa. We feel put up this community so that you can reach out to other developers and know their journey till from where they started to where they are right now. So we are grateful to you for that opportunity. Thank you, Henry.
Nice. Um, I'm Henry Kariuki. I'm an Android developer. Also, I love the fact that we give back to the tech community in a platform such as this. Yeah, so I'm glad that I'm part of this team that is bringing developers across Africa to share their journeys. Thank you.
Donald, you can introduce yourself.
I'm Donald Kiplagat. I'm a web developer. I'm also the lead at Developer Stories Africa. Over here, we inspire developers and also teach them through the user stories or the user journeys, or rather the developer journeys that we presented in the events.
Okay, thank you. So today we will be hosting Wayne, Wayne Gakuo, who is a front-end developer at Ed Ventures Limited. He's also an organizer at GDG Nairobi, Angular Kenya, and Anita Bill, and also a program manager at Lux Tech Academy. So, and last 2 weeks we did our first event whereby we hosted Valentine Ruto, who is an Android developer at Delight Kenya, whereby she shared some of the lessons she had for us. And if you haven't checked that, I guess it's the best time. After this event, you can also check the last event. Okay, so we're still waiting for the guests to come over. And also, if you have any person you wish to be interviewed or whom you wish to hear their stories, you can reach out to us and then we will invite them over to develop a stories Africa where they can share their journey in text. Wayne is already here, and as I had introduced in earlier, so I said Wayne is a front-end developer at Adventures. He is also an organizer at GDG Nairobi, Angular Kenya, and Anita Bio. Yeah, so all those are developer communities. You can also check them out and check out that academy. It's a good academy. Yeah, so when you can take the stage and introduce yourself in case there is something I missed. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry, I was a bit late. I was just trying to figure out where the meeting link was because I think I was on Google Meet and not here. But yeah, thank you once again. I'm really honored to be here and to talk about my tech community journey. And I'd like to appreciate each and everyone who has joined us, those who are watching via the YouTube live stream. And yeah, I hope you get to enjoy this story. Yeah, and definitely if you'd have questions, you can definitely reach out to me later on. But yeah, I would like just to go dive right into it. If I could share my screen.
If
Okay,
possible,
just a
also you
minute.
can turn on your camera so that the audience can see you.
Okay, hold on, just hold on. I think my camera has issues, but don't worry, you guys will see me most of the time. So I don't know if you guys can see my screen right now.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Uh, I think it should be portrayed on the screen by the host because it's on the dashboard.
Okay, let me check. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. As mentioned, my name is Gakuo. I'm a front-end developer at Adventures, and if you are interested, definitely check out what I do at Adventures. I tweet sometimes about it, sometimes I don't. But mostly I tweet about tech stuff. And yeah, find me on Twitter at Wayne_Gakuo, and we'll definitely have a chat. But let me just go right into it. So yeah, as Wayne Gakuo, I am a Mombasa born and bred guy. Sisi ni wale ambao tumekuwa tukila pilau, tukila biriani tangu kuzaliwa, tumelelewa nayo chapati marago ya nazi, and yeah, here we are. And it's been an amazing journey, especially being one coming from Mombasa. You get to have the opportunity or the rare opportunity to see different cultures from different perspectives, really understanding what these cultures are all about, how they even intertwine. Like for example, how even Kiswahili came about. It's been kind of like a series of constant learning all through while being in Mombasa. But yeah, so yeah, it's a bit brief history about myself. I'm gonna start from high school because primary school nowadays I couldn't even find the logo of our school. Yeah, but in primary school I studied at St. Augustine's preparatory school in Mombasa. After that, joined Aga Khan High School Mombasa, where I finished my 4 years of education there. And then after that, I joined Egerton University. And how this came about was while I was in Aga Khan, I used to be someone who was really, really interested in computers. And like during one of my choices, I chose that I wanted to do medicine because I really loved biology and chemistry. But I couldn't qualify for any medicinal course. And because they were like, oh, you can't you can't go to and do medicine to any university because you didn't do physics and all that. Me, I was like, okay, no way. And then my second choice, of course, was computer science because, like, yeah, I was this guy who likes a lot about computers and all that. But yeah, then another thing was that I couldn't do computer science because I didn't do physics. That is one thing that didn't really make sense to me because I was like, how does even physics come into play with regards to this? Like, this is physics. I mean, this is computer science. There's nothing to do with physics of any kind. Maybe the best you could say is just math, but it's really basic math. But yeah, I was called to do Bachelor of Commerce at Egerton University. And I'm not gonna lie, it was an interesting year for me. Like I did BCom for 1 year, and the whole time I was really thinking about, wait, is this really what I want to do? Because I remember when I got the calling letter and I asked my mom, and she was, "I want to do this." I was like, I don't really know, and I don't really have a choice right now. Sometimes when you're called to a certain cause here in Kenya, sometimes you don't even have a choice because it's government sponsored, so you like pay a very small portion of it, small portion of the school fees, so you just go because you know you just have to get that degree because some of the Kenyan companies really require you to have a degree for them to employ you and all that. So yeah, I went to Egerton University, did my 1 year, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really enjoy it because I felt like something was missing. And I'm not trying to, I don't know, diminish Bachelor of Commerce, no. But then I'm talking in terms of a personal perspective and what my interests were. Because my interests were really into computers at that time. Medicine was like, that thing's just like probably at the back of my mind. I'll just do stuff with doing science like at my like kind of like a side time thing. But after my 1 year in Egerton University as a BCom, I always wanted to find something at least that makes me happy while doing that particular course. So I think my first semester, we did HIV. So I used to enjoy that course because like really got to understand the anatomy of the virus itself, like how it works and all that. And then moving on, we had like I think it was like communications unit, and then there was also at later time there was something to do with computers. So those are like the very very small things that really I enjoyed while doing Bachelor of Commerce. But when it comes to accounting, it was just it was tragic. But with that time, also applications opened for me to apply to Ashesi University. And by God's grace, I got a full scholarship under MasterCard Foundation to study computer science at Ashesi University. And there was no way they were looking for physics and all that. What they're looking at was, okay, do you have the grades? Yes, you have the good grades. Do you have the ability to perform at probably like a university where there could be constant pressure here and there, but then you still get the benefits out of it? They're like, yes, and then probably write up some essays because with someone being sponsored by a foundation or an organization like Mastercard Foundation, they need to see, first of all, are you someone who's committed to giving back to the community? What do you see, like what is the vision of your country? Like where do you see Kenya, for example, in 5 years to come or 50 years to come? Yeah, and yeah, got to Ashesi University and was able to do my computer science, what I always wanted to do, and got to learn how to code. And I think I made a mistake on my first year because I thought like I did or I knew the basics of computers. So I jumped right into Python. And I had never done HTML, CSS, JavaScript because I thought like the course that people were doing that had HTML, CSS, and JS was just computers. Like, what is a computer? How does it connect to the internet? And I had done it in my computer studies back in high school. So I went into Python, and it was really a tough journey because like really trying to understand how to write code, and probably write the syntax of how Python should look like. Because at some point I used to read that, oh, you need to have, I don't know, semicolons and all that. And then I find Python was like this weird looking programming language. Like, what is this? But yeah, was a great opportunity to like learn something new. And throughout my 4 years in Ashesi, I was able to not just do computer science, but I got a taste of, I would say, bits and pieces of what will make someone a scholar, I would say. And that would mean you not only focusing on computer science, but then you also do something to do with statistics. You can do finance, you can do business administration, you can do ethics and international affairs. You can also do things like machine learning. You can do natural language processing. And I think my favorite were natural language processing. I really loved doing the natural language processing course, because what HSC does is between your first year and your second year, you have that period whereby you kind of like reflect on like, okay, do I really want to do computer science? Do I want to really do engineering? And if not, by the end of the second year, you are allowed to switch to something that suits you. So that was the beauty of HSC that came with it. And yeah, but um, I managed to continue with Ashesi and all the way till I graduated with the bachelor's in computer science at Ashesi. And after that was now time to move to work, right? I think I was privileged, or it was kind of like a humbling thing, because I actually had a job even before I finished Ashesi. I was reached out by a recruiter at Moringa School, and they were like, "Hey, we've seen your portfolio. I mean, no, we've seen your communities and all that. We'd like you to come work for us." And we had a chat. We wanted to entail, and yeah, I joined Moringa School. I think it was like a month after I'd come back from Ashesi, and that was so. I graduated in June of 2019, and then I started work in July. But I did the stint for like about 3 months. The reason why, so after 3 months, I resigned. The reason was because I think the role wasn't really fit for what I was interested in. Of course, Moringa is an amazing place, but the role I was doing outreach and events assistant. But I felt like I had much more potential in terms of what I really wanted to do, because I really wanted to do something with communities and at the same time build my portfolio as a developer. But I personally did not have that chance. Yeah, had a talk with the supervisor, had a talk with the the department head, and yeah, they're really okay with it, and they really understood it. And yeah, moved on to NACAP, which is was a remote opportunity as a software developer. And while at NACAP, I was kind of thrown into the deep end, because I was told like I need to learn Angular. And at that time, what I would come out of Ashesi University was I had only learned Laravel, and I'd used Laravel PHP for my final project. And for me, all I knew was just Laravel, like literally backend. I didn't know much about HTML. I didn't know much about CSS. It was just like the basic stuff that I knew, right? Just header tag and all that. And I remember I used to hate CSS like no one's business. Like I used to rant, and we used to have a fellow developer who used to write like amazing CSS, and I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, "Hey, bro, how do you even do this?" And he was like, you don't worry. It's all about learning. You just job at the same time, do crash courses, pay for courses if you want, and all that. So I had to learn. Had to go back onto my basics, like, okay, now I want to learn HTML, I want to learn CSS, and I want to learn JavaScript, because Angular is literally JavaScript, but then on the higher end, which is TypeScript. So yeah, I got to learn that, and it was an experience. I left NACAP in January of 2020. And after that, I was looking out for another opportunity. Uh, Gracious enough, I had a friend, probably you guys know him. He's called Benson. Benson Kinoti linked up someone who would give me an opportunity to show off my skills, right? And I joined MySpace Properties as a software engineer and a technical lead. That was around end of February 2020. So before, by that time, I was about to start work. Then COVID-19 happened. So like lockdowns and everything. So there's no way you could get paid. There's no way you could even go to the office or anything. So that was an impediment. Yeah, I had to leave my space later on because of that. Because like there were massive layoffs here and there. We had to kind of like rethink on how to do things. But for the few weeks I did work at MySpace was really eye opening in terms of like really exploring the Angular tech stack and with regards to not only working with the Angular but also with Firebase. And did like for like about say 2 months or 3 months, yeah, and then joined. So so wait, sorry, I left MySpace at around March, yeah, March April, and now between April and July I used to do a bit of freelancing here and there. Got to learn more about Firebase and like how it works with Angular, how it works with plain JavaScript and like very simple websites and all that. In between this time, I used to like really build my skills as a front end developer. And yeah, thanks to a friend who like really connected me to a relative that she had, and she was like, I have an aunt who wants a website and all that. I was like, yeah, sure, could definitely do it. Yeah, got some money at least to push me all through, because at that time it was the pandemic period, so getting someone to give you money for building a website was a bit tough. But thank God that it was someone who could really understand each other. Yeah, and then in July, I after I was done with the project, I got a call from a lady, and like she tells me like, hey Wayne, I got your number from a friend who recommended you as a good Angular developer. And I was like, wait, what? Angular developer? I'm not even good in Angular. Like I'm literally just starting to understand it. But then they kind of like give me a scope of how the framework, I mean, of how the project is and all that. I was like, okay, sure, no problem. And that's how I landed a role of front end engineer at Funditech. And it was more of on a contract basis, which ended around in January. Yeah, and between this time, I was thinking about coming back home because I felt like I wasn't doing much in Nairobi. Uh, there's not much to do in Nairobi because I was working remotely. I was never needed somewhere in an office, so I had to move back to Mombasa. And between January and February, still I kept on learning about how to build apps and all that, and how to optimize your applications, and especially your Angular applications. Because when I was on this period of trying to really upskill, I used to look at job descriptions for opportunities, and what they would mention is things that I've never even heard of, or probably I've heard of, but then I ignore them. And for instance, there was this something like was really constant with JDs. Like, of course, you should know Angular, Angular 2 plus, which is like just literally the Angular right now we have, which is in version 12. You need to understand how to write components, how to write services, how to um, how to handle state management. And I was like, what is this thing? Like, what is all this? Can't they just take me and I'll learn while on the job? But yeah, some companies do that, some don't. So either way, you need to be very prepared. So yeah, it took about so yeah, between that period, interviewed with many companies. Some companies never got back to me, some did. I got at a point whereby like it reaches a point where you see rejection emails and you're really tired of like seeing rejection emails every now and then, because you try and think, okay, so what did I do wrong, right? But one thing like I learned was that when you find like you have a rejection email, like that's okay, right? Like you'll definitely get those emails. But what you need to do is try and take a step back and look at the interview questions that you had. So I used to scribble down the questions that were asked and make sure that even when I have the next interview for a different company, I have probably like mastered what that question was back then. And how I did that was, whenever I was told by a recruiter, like, tell me what you know about Angular, that's when I'll shine with this question that I failed in the past. And it was really an amazing experience because I got to really understand even Angular in depth, even more interviews that I did. So yeah, coming back home, Mombasa was pretty relaxing. We got to now be at a place whereby I feel like, okay, now I need to really get into the serious business of remote, as a remote software developer. So yeah, I got an opportunity to work at Adventures, which was, it was being advertised on LinkedIn, and I applied. I got the opportunity to work with them. And the beauty with the adventures was that these guys, like, they employed me after my first interview. And the reason why they did that was I answered like almost all the technical questions they wanted, and they loved the fact that I have this portfolio of very simple projects that I built, but then also at the same time I have like work experience, like working with companies such as SnackUp, MySpace, and Funditech, and I have the projects to show for it. And yeah, joined adventures has just been an amazing experience all through. And I joined them back in end of February this year, and till now I'm a front end developer. And recently I've got an opportunity to work company called Kobiro. The company is Poland, and working as a remote front end developer with Angular. And it's been more of really trying to figure out, like, okay, do I need to shift to another framework, right? Or do I need to just stick to where I am right now, but then just get better because, opportunities are there? And the whole thing of framework, work, like Angular versus React versus Vue, personally, I feel as it shouldn't even be there, right? Because you're all doing something, or you're all working on something that will make your work easier, right? And that means you can any tool, right? As long as it just accomplishes the tasks that you want to accomplish, just use that framework. So I had to say, like, okay, I'm gonna stick with Angular. Waswahili useme liwa liwalo. So I stuck with Angular and did that with adventures and got even better and better in Angular. Nowadays, when I look at an application and I see folders everywhere, and I'm like, wow, is this person even thinking about scalability, right? And all this is because I've worked on number of projects. There should not necessarily be applications that are gonna be sold, but rather like side projects. And with things like, you have to read articles from other developers on how to optimize applications, how to structure your folders, and all that. You get to that space whereby even when someone sees a project that you built, they'll be really, really amazed, like, oh wow, this is actually a product that I can really understand, right? Because it has a good folder structure, it has comments, it has action. So there's that safety with applications when it comes to, for example, if you have a new developer in your company, right? They can easily understand your code. And yeah, so that's how I got my job at Kobiro. I got my job at Kobiro, actually. It was through Angular Kenya. This is a story for another day, but this was because of the work that we were doing at Angular Kenya, and that's how I got this opportunity at Kobiro. Of course, I did technical interviews, and yeah, fast forward to where I am today, right now. Yeah, I'll be starting work at Kobiro as a front end developer, and yeah, it's gonna be a pretty exciting journey. Yeah, and apart from just work, I do a lot of stuff with communities. Currently I'm an ally at Anita Borg Nairobi, and for those who probably don't know, Anita Borg is an institution or an organization that champions for more women inclusion or female inclusion in tech. And as a male ally, I'm tasked with that obligation, or a position whereby I'm supposed to bring in the male counterparts to make Anita Borg Nairobi attain the vision, which it's kind of like a general vision by Anita Borg, which is to have the male to female ratio to be at 50-50 by the year 2025. All this should be in the tech space. So yeah, that's what my work is as a male ally. And apart from that, I'm also a co-organizer of GDG Nairobi. And probably you already know what Google Developers Group is all about. Right? It's all about bringing developers or bringing people to come and talk about their stories with how they've built products, building solutions with some of the best known Google technologies there is. And apart from that, I'm also a co-lead of Angular Kenya. I know most of you already know Angular Kenya is all about, because we make a lot of noise on Twitter. Yeah, but in a nutshell, Angular Kenya is a platform whereby if you're really interested in learning about Angular, this is an opportunity for you to interact with some of the Kenyan developers that you probably did not know about, but at the same time also get to learn from like experts, right? Because we've had a number of Google developer experts for Angular coming to talk at Angular Kenya. We've had the likes of Santosh, who's GDA for Angular. We've had the likes of Nishu Goel, who is a GDE for Angular too, and like she had like this amazing session on how to build an NPM package, right, for your application, which is amazing. And we've managed to cover the basics from like introduction to Angular till where right now we're all about talking about scalability, talking about how we can build better applications and all that. And yeah, it's been an exciting journey. And we've also had people coming to us and like, hey Wayne, we're looking for these developers. Is there do you have someone who could match this description, right? And we definitely connect them. And it's been an amazing thing because you get to see the impact that this community is having on people, and also at the same time recruiters actually coming to your community to outsource for these talents, right? Yeah, but then this is a lot of info I've shared with you guys, a lot of stuff, but how did I exactly start getting involved in the tech ecosystem, right? Like, where did I start? Like, what is that one thing that really clicked? Was like, huh, I could actually do this, right? So first and foremost, this started with something called the GDG Ashesi chapter. So back then, there was nothing like developer student clubs. It was more of you have a university and you have probably enthusiasts who are interested in learning more about Google technologies, right? And what GDG did was that if you're interested in having like some sort of chapter in university, you could register with them and you could have sessions. They'll share with you some swags. You're not paid, like this is completely voluntary. They would share swag. Sometimes if you want speakers, they can come to your university and talk about it. And that's how I joined GDG Ashesi chapter. And this was because of the fact that I was doing a lot of coding in class, but then I really wanted to understand how do people write code out there, right, in building products and building apps, and how do these products even get to the market, right? Because with every software engineering journey, they will tell you like, oh, we built this and this and this, and this is how it impacted the people in the community. And for me, I've always been someone like, how can I put my skills into play to make sure that I actually help people in my community, right? And at that time, I was in Accra, and I was really looking for something to do because I did a lot of stints with NGOs and all that. But then I was really interested, like I want to do something with tech, and that's where I actually landed GDG Ashesi chapter. And at that time, as this guy called Oliver Mensah, I really, really owe it to him, like really introducing me to GDG, was that you don't really have to know anything, right? Just come. We'll give you content of which you can follow through, and you will get somewhere. And the what followed after that was I was enrolled in a program under Udacity, and at this time it was when applications were being opened up for people who are interested in learning about web development, Android, and I think I'm not sure cloud was there, but mostly it was a scholarship program for just anything in tech. So I chose Android because at that time I think we had a project that I used to do with mobile phones. It was like I want to understand how to build Android applications. Well, I did Android basics. It was exciting, but I was kind of traumatized by Java in my second year. But I managed to actually complete it because I got to really understand at least the syntax of Java. And yeah, I got my certificate under the nano degree program by Google. And yeah, I graduated. And then with this particular moment, right, as you can see over here, this was in 2018, right? But now the thing is with tech is that whenever you finish one thing, there's always something else you can do better. And this happened. Developer Student Club, Ashesi University. And at first, it was, I actually thought of it was just a continuation of GDG Ashesi chapter. In a way, it is, but then it was just, they did a bit of rebranding because they were like, we want to have something that is specifically for clubs, I mean, specifically for universities. And these clubs should be able to deliver content at the same time teach people how to code. And again, this is all on a voluntary basis. So you don't get paid for you to be a DSC lead, right? Or nowadays it's called the Google Developer Student Club. Yeah. So you're not paid to do this. So the applications came out, and Oliver was like, "Hey, Wayne, I think you should apply for this one." I was like, "Okay, I've never led a tech community, but I've had experience with leading teams or leading communities, but then more of an NGO level." It's like, okay, let me just give it a try. And yeah, did my application, and yeah, successfully the DSC program. And this was when we went for our induction, and that was in it was in Nigeria. It was the DSC summit in Nigeria 2018, and I got to meet like amazing people coming from across the continent, right? I had my fellow Kenyans, I had Kenyans, we had people coming all the way from or we had people from Rwanda, we had people from Mauritius. And one thing that really resonated with all of us over here was we were passionate about communities. And that's what really brought us all together. And I remember at that time, I was really, really looking for people, okay, because I know we had communities in our school, but then everyone was just busy with stuff, right? But then I was looking for, okay, can we get people, or can I find people who are deeply, deeply interested in tech communities, right? And that's how DSC really opened up even many doors for me. So it got to learn a lot of stuff from these people, especially like management, like how to manage teams, how to even teach people to code, right? And with this opportunity to even lead, it gave me also an opportunity to learn, because at this time, like for example, this was when we had our launch, and for a tech community in Ashesi University, this was the highest, because people are always busy. People are always doing the assignments, doing their work, which is, of course, it's understandable. But people don't really understand like how we got this huge number. But mostly it was because I had to go to like almost. I actually went to quite a number of people, my classmates, the freshmen, second years, like tell them like, hey, we're starting a club and we'd like you to join, and this is what you're going to do. You don't really have to know how to code. We are going to teach you how to code. And like, yeah, we had this massive turnout for our launch, and we got to lay it all down for people. It's like, hey guys, this is what we're going to do in DSC, and this is the outcome of it, right? We're not going to say that, oh, we're going to give you a job, but we're actually going to give you the skills to get that job. And that's how we got to now start workshops with DSC. And we actually had two tracks. We had the mobile track and the web development track. And of course the web track was divided into two. We had now front end and we had back end, and we had to make sure that we also have tutors, the right tutors for these different tracks that we have. And I got to work with such an amazing team. One of them took up after me as the lead, and then another one who was also part of the club took up again as the part of the lead. I mean, as the lead CHSE. And throughout this whole process, one thing was all about patience, because as students, we are always eager to learn about new stuff. We want to learn about Firebase, right? I want to learn what is HTML and CSS, right? How do they even come together, right? And I remember this time when we even had fourth years coming to our session. And for me, I was really, really amazed. It's like, okay, wait, we have fourth years coming for this session. And I was like, how do you even do this? Like, how is it that you're 40 and you're coming to learn like the basics? But then I got to understand that in class, of course, you will learn how to code, but sometimes you're mostly doing it just for your projects or just for your classwork. You're not really doing it to just get a deeper understanding of how this technology works and how you can tap into other technologies to work with it. And as DSC, like it was such an amazing experience that even after I got done with leading DSC, I was reached out by a friend, and she told me like, "Hey Wayne, I've seen the work you've done at HSE, and would love you to come and organize a conference, and this is going to be all about artificial intelligence, and it's going to involve teenagers, that is the age of 12 to 16, and would like to be one of the leading organizers. So yeah, what do you think? And like, yeah, that's okay. I don't really mind. And the beauty of it was I got to even work with my fellow DSC leads from Kenya, and also got to recruit other people who were really passionate about teaching people how to use artificial intelligence. And yeah, we had teenagers who were really, really interested in AI. And like they did this pitching session after we took them through design thinking and how to build solutions for the users. And yeah, the winning team actually had their project presented at Deep Learning Indaba. For those who know what Deep Learning Indaba or don't know, is Deep Learning Indaba is a conference that is held annually here in Africa to talk about the AI and ML advances that are there in the current state. So yeah, and this year was held in Nairobi, so that was the best time also to have this conference. That's when I got to meet even some of amazing people, amazing kids who are really or deeply interested in like building solutions, right? We had people who build AI models, and they were using Azure, like AI models to detect blood sugar levels, I think. Others were for accident occurrences and all that to predict if you're gonna get an accident based on, I don't know, I think it was like your driving skills or something. Like mind blowing solutions, because these kids had ideas, but they didn't really have a platform for it. So as teens in AI, that's how it came about, and like really gave them that opportunity to just be themselves and learn more about stuff. And at the same time, also make friends. Yeah, and apart from just teaching people and all that, I also got the opportunity to even attend events. And I remember this is the first Dev Fest that as Club Ashesi attended. And as you can see on the far left, that's Aniedi. Aniedi is one of the community program managers of DSC in Sub-Saharan, not DSC, sorry, but Google Developers Group in Sub-Saharan Africa. And those who are at the back, some of the members, some of them have graduated, some are graduating even today. And one thing I loved about this club or this community was that these people were like they were really interested in learning about Google stuff. And of course, maybe it's because of the bias that people have with Google and all that. But I think one thing that really inspired me was that they were just deeply interested in learning about, for example, TensorFlow, right? Because we even had like hackathons, companies coming us like, hey Wayne, we'd like to have a hacker club. Is it possible? And they're like, yeah. And probably some of you know Eloho Thomas. She's the CEO of Kotlin, and that's where I actually got to know about Kotlin. And we had a hackathon, of which the winning team was actually from the freshman class. That was really mind blowing for me. And the one on the far left, that's the club patron of DSC. Like he all thanks to him, we had like tremendous help from him to make sure that the club like ran smoothly, make sure that we book the classes in time, we book the offices. For example, if you want to discuss something with him, he's always there, and it's just amazing. And at the same time, also the community itself was just amazing. Yeah, we also had um our first what was the name of that hash code? Yes, Google hash code. Yeah, that was actually Google hash code. And to my surprise, or even to I think was the excitement of DSE, was that the winning team of Google hash code from Ghana came from DSE Ashesi, which was like a very, very big win for us. And yeah, and this was towards the end of my final. That was actually my final event as a DSC lead. And this was actually the day when I was supposed to travel for something called the Google I/O. For those who know what Google I/O is all about, I'll talk more about it. Yeah, and also after DSE, again, this was an event with Anita Borg Nairobi, where we had the first Anita Borg Nairobi Summit. I think it was back in 2019. Yes, it was back in 2019. And yeah, got to see amazing faces, got to meet new people over here. And throughout this journey of being a leader and leading tech and just teaching people how to code, yeah, at that time, Google were like, hey, Wayne, we've seen your story. Okay, we've been following up on what you're doing with DSE because I used to make a lot of noise on Twitter. Because one thing I was taught with someone who wants to the community known out there is you need to make noise, and by that is talk about the progress that you're doing, talk about the things you're doing, talk about the projects you're working on, talk about even the events that you're having. And yeah, Google developers came to Ashesi and they filmed what we were doing at DSE. If you want, you can definitely check out the video on YouTube. Just search for Wayne's Google Developers Journey, and you'll definitely see it. Yeah, so another beautiful thing that comes out of working in the tech space is travel opportunities, right? This was the first time I had attended Google I/O. The previous years were more of I would just read what was released at Google I/O. So I could not even I was not even attending, let's say probably if there was a live session, right? And but then, as you can see over here, this picture, these are actually DSC leads coming from across the world. From Africa, we were about five, I suppose. Yeah, five. Yeah, five. So there was me from Ghana, but I was Kenyan. We had Jilo, who was Kenyan and the university that she was leading was JQuat. We had Susi or Sadat, whose university, I think it's in Kano. I can't really remember the name. Yeah, and then we also had David Assem, whose university was uh, KNUST, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Then we had Hajot Singh. Hajot was the DSC lead for, I think it was University of Pretoria or University of Cape Town. I can't really remember. I think it's, yes, UCT, yes. University of Cape Town. Yeah, and the others we had were from India. I think we had from Pakistan. And it was such an amazing experience. And the only criteria for you to be able to attend Google I/O for the DSE leads was you need to have had a number of sessions, or at the same time, the impact has been felt within the community. And that's how I landed to travel to I/O, got to meet amazing people at Google. That was the time, for the first time, I met Benson Kinoti, who works at Google in Kenya. I got to meet faces that I usually used to see only in our sessions, video sessions. People like Komal, Erica. We met people from the Google Cloud team. Um, Probably the guy over here we could see. I think it's the second from the right down. Those who are kind of squatting. That was used to be our program manager, but nowadays he does something else at Google, and it's called Solomon. Yes, Solomon Awosupin. So it's just been an amazing experience, like being at Google I/O, because like you get to see these people you just seen on videos or maybe just tutorials, right? And at the same time, you got to meet the famous LC team, that is the Andela Learning Community. That was my first time also meeting faces like Juma Alan, people who I used to see on Twitter, and we used to make noise and like Juma would just retweet my tweets. I'm like, hey, okay, this big guy over here is retweeting my tweets, right? And got to meet him, got to meet also the organizers of ALC, people like Rahma Masicheruto, and I got to learn a lot of stuff from them. And this was all because of how they were able to like run communities, and especially ALC, because running a community whereby you have members or you have attendees coming from different countries, it's not an easy task, and like got to really learn a thing or two from them, which was pretty amazing. Yeah, of course, whenever you go to Google, you have to take a picture in front of the Google Plex. Yeah, this is a famous picture which I will forever cherish it, because go to the Google Plex, we saw how people work, we ate the food, the cafeteria, man, like those people have a lot of food. Yeah, and also got to meet I would say big wigs in quotes under the Google Developers Group program. Got to meet the VP of developer relations at that time, which was Adam, And the one on my left or on your right is Erica, and then that's Aniedi, and then taking the selfie, that's Solomon. Yeah, and of course, now when you're done with stuff to do with tech, you need to make sure that you set up your portfolio, right? And your portfolio is literally like a selling point on like what exactly can you do, right? Because you'd find out like nowadays companies do not really look at what you know, but rather what can you do, right? Because you can know what you can know how to write code in Java, you can know how to write code in JavaScript, but can you really do it when you're given a project, right? So that's one thing that people usually look for, and as a portfolio, that's where you actually showcase it. This is a portfolio that I open sourced. It's like something very simple. I built it, and I remember sharing this that I actually built this while I was in the kitchen. I was just cooking, and I finished cooking, and I was like thinking like, wait, do I even have a portfolio? I don't have it. So I just took out my laptop, and at the kitchen I was just coding, and I just finished the portfolio. I think it was like I did it for like I finished 70% of it in that night, and then the other was just finished on the next day. Yeah, so if you want, it's very simple for you to be able to change a few things here and there, and use this also to always share it even with recruiters who want to look at your work, right? And apart from this portfolio, one thing I usually say is that you need to surround yourself with people who inspire you and also support you, right? Giving my case, um, starting from GDG Ashesi chapter to where I am right now, it's been a series of people who were mentoring me, telling me what to do, what not to do, how to improve myself, how to improve the community, and at the same time, you look at their actions like, oh, okay, how do they even probably talk to the students, right? Do they talk them with a harsh voice, a commanding voice, or just a simple voice whereby you understand that these students don't know everything, so you need to take it one step at a time. And this has all been like a learning journey, right? But then I'm always speaking bits and pieces from different people, meeting new people who are kind of like the big wigs out here in the tech space, and it's all about that support system and having people who really inspire you. Yeah, and apart from techie stuff and all that, one thing is for sure is mental health. This is something that is always talked about, or probably people don't really talk about it as much. But as developers, we tend to have burnouts, we tend to have stress when it comes to like building solutions. Building softwares for clients and all that. And sometimes you'll even be tempted to work even outside your normal working hours. But one thing I usually say is, as a software developer, you need to really, really think about your mental health. And by that, I mean, you need to, first of all, to appreciate the fact that you're a human being and you're not a robot. You're not going to be running on fumes by the end of the day, because you need, first of all, to make sure you eat well. You need to make sure that you plan your day well. At the same time, take breaks, right? And another thing is, whenever you're at a job, right, you have to make sure that it's not a toxic work environment. Like, learn when to say no and leave a toxic work environment. Because, as we always say, you're a resource, but you're human first. So do not be caught up in this thing of just uh, borrowing inspiration or some inspiration from a friend of mine called Roina. And like, there's this thing that she mentioned was that some companies tend to give you that we are family feeling, right? And for you as a human being, right, you love the fact that you're all together, and but sometimes it can even become very stressful, because you'll find that this company is asking you to do stuff even in your normal working hours, and it can give you a lot of stress. But then again, yeah, always say no to toxic work environments. If you don't feel like that place is really building you, just leave. You don't really have to keep staying there. I know we have this thing of oh, you need to work somewhere, get the money and all that. Hey, this is an opinion. It's an opinion, but one thing I usually say is that whatever has your name on it, it will definitely find it. So do not force things. Usiforce kabisa. Yeah, and this is some of the key lessons while learning being in the community. This is just some of it. Is humility. Always, always, always be humble when it comes to working with people. Because one thing is, yes, you might know stuff and the other person doesn't know. And there's a higher chance that you also don't know stuff that the person knows. Personally, I never knew about I don't know, Vue.js, right? But you as a leader, you don't have to give yourself all that stress of like, I need to learn Angular, I need to learn Vue, I need to learn React. No, give other people opportunities to present on it. And while they're presenting on it, you'll also be part of the attendees who are actually learning how to use that particular tool or that particular framework. So always, always be humble. Passion and compassion, it's something you probably had it all through when it comes to tech. Always be passionate with whatever you want to do and whatever you're interested in. At the same time, have compassion in the sense that you make sure that you at least, and not necessarily doing it every single time, but at least meeting the needs of the people or the community members, right? If community members need help, for example, in working on a project, see if you can help. If you can't, you can definitely refer them to someone else. And growth, right? I can't stress much about growth because it's self-explanatory, right? Because as a leader or even as someone who's just into the tech space, right, you're always looking for growth. Because personally, I won't say that I'm the same way I was back in 2019. Like since 2019 till now, or even just say from 2018 as a DSC lead to currently leading Angular Kenya, there's been a lot of growth that comes with it, right? And perseverance. I think this really goes hand in hand with growth because, as I said, whatever has your name on it will find you. So always, always be one who is always working on whatever they are doing right now. So keep for those probably who are religious, let's really say that you have to be very faithful in the small things that you have currently right now. So even if you're having an internship opportunity, do well in it. You never know. Someone might see your work ethic and probably give you a higher role or a higher opportunity, right? And yeah, hope is something that as a community leader or someone just in communities, you need to have to instill that in your members or in the people that you work with, because it might reach a point whereby people feel like, oh my god, this community is just hopeless, like there are no jobs, there are nothing. But one thing is to tell them like, look, this platform is not necessarily for you to get a job, but it's for you to get the skills to get that job. So always, always have that in mind. And community, again, that's self-explanatory. Service, and by service I mean servant leadership, and that means you being able, one, to work with people, right? Don't ever do this one-man show or one-woman show whereby like I'm running things over here. No, but actually have people who can work with you. Because one thing I usually even mention this, even during interviews, is that when you work with people, you get a mix of different ideas which can really manifest into something very, very beautiful, right? So always work with people, and at the same time listen to the people you are actually leading, because you never know, you might be missing something, but because maybe you're a leader up there like I know everything, it can become very detrimental for you even as a leader. Yeah, and vision, have a vision for your community, have a vision for the tech community that you're in, or even the journey that you're in currently. And yeah, be responsible. At the same time, volunteer, right? Whenever you see opportunities to like volunteer for a conference or volunteer for this, volunteer for that, if you have the time and the resources, just do it, right? There's a higher chance that you'll get someone who actually is going to employ you from that from whatever you'll be doing. If I give an example of myself, uh, I actually got my first job as a software developer that is working at NACAP, and this was because of a student that I was teaching how to code, and he actually recommended me for that particular role. And at that time, uh, this guy was in first year, yes, and I was actually finishing university, and then this guy was in first year, but he actually recommended me for a software developer role, and that's how I got it. And there wasn't even much of technical interviews or anything, but because this person actually vouched for me, as like, I know Wayne has done this and this and this, and this is what he's been teaching me and all that. So you never know, right? So when you volunteer, just do your level best. You never know who's looking at you, right? And yeah, just to wrap up, continue being awesome out there. Right. So I've attached a video to this. So whenever you get the time, I will share these slides. Whenever you get the time, just check out the video, or you can even check it out on YouTube. And yeah, thank you very much. I can take any questions that people might have.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. Sorry, it's really inspiring. I never knew that side of the story. Me, I think I only knew from I think last year, and I just knew that you are the first person to come up with a DSC at a SHESC. Yeah, that's all I know
Uh,
about you. So we have a question from Cheke Brian,
mhm.
and he's asking how supportive was the school administration when you were starting the DSC club?
Yeah. Um, but then I think this is specifically for Ashes University. Like Ashesi has been very okay. He's always supportive of any initiatives by students in the sense that they usually say these resources are for students and not for the school. But um, for example, whenever we had hackathons, whenever we had sessions, of course, we had to book with the administration office. But the beauty of it was that whenever you book it, that's going to be for you. And I know some public universities have this tendency of um, a club has booked a particular room or a particular class, and probably I don't know, some big shot out of nowhere comes and say like I want to use this room, and they're given, right? But one thing I love about HSC was that no one is above the law, or no one is above the other, but we are all equal, and everyone's going to be given an equal opportunity. So at HSC it has always been supportive. Also at the same time we had some which were given to every club in school. And yeah, when it comes to even events that we had, hackathons, we even had the school retweeting our tweets. So yeah, it was very, very supportive, I would say.
Okay, I also have a question from Cliff, and he's asking, I think this is all about syndrome. So he's
Yeah,
asking, in your developer journey, how do you handle imposter syndrome through your
yeah.
job applications and getting all the rejections?
Yeah, okay. So I think one thing people should understand is that imposter syndrome, like everyone has imposter syndrome, right? And one thing, the fact that you need to appreciate is that imposter syndrome can actually first of all it can take a toll on you, like on a personal level, but then at the same time you can overcome it. And how you can overcome it, and in my case how I even overcame it, was that with each and every interview that I had, right, of course it's gonna be very heart-wrenching because you're getting a rejection and all that. But one thing is that you look at the questions that you are asked, right, the technical ones, and probably you're not able to answer them. What you do is that whenever you are done with that interview, or whenever you get that rejection, you still come back and reflect. Okay, so these are the questions I was asked. How did I answer it? Did I answer it correctly, or did I answer it wrongly? And if I answered it wrongly, how can I make it better? Right? And that's how, because as I mentioned, I used to note down those questions. So whenever I was done with an interview, I had to go and look them up. Or whenever I got probably a rejection, I just look them up, so that even by the next time I'm going to another interview, like there's a 90% chance you'll be asked by the interviewer that, hey, tell me about yourself, or tell me about the tech stack you're using. And that's actually where you shine with these questions that you failed before. Yeah. And I think also at the same time is um, talk to people who have gone through it. They'll give you amazing pointers on like how even they overcame it, and at the same time how they even got to where they are right now, because there's a high chance they've also gone through imposter syndrome in one way or the other. Yeah.
Okay, we also
Any other
have a
question?
question from Maurice Moore. So
Mhm.
though I think this question is more generic, or I don't know. So he's asking,
Oh yeah, it's okay.
do you think a master's degree is important for devs? And then he's also asking, is there anything to learn? I'm not sure about
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so from my perspective, I don't really think master's degree is really important, unless you are going for something very specific and probably the company that you want to work for requires it. But in our current state, like 2021 right now, companies are not even really looking for papers because, as I mentioned, they're not really looking for what you know, but what you can do. So, for example, probably company you've seen, probably companies like Google or any other startup companies, right? They said that they're not really looking at your grades, they're not really looking at your degree. Is, for example, like how well can you answer their data structures and algorithm questions, right? And for masters, if you're someone who, I don't know, just wants to have more than one degree or want to have a master's, yeah, go for it. That is, it's really really a personal ambition, I would say.
Okay, so there's a question from Juliet. She's asking, I think this an advice to those who are starting out in software engineering. So, what advice would you give someone who is starting to learn coding, like on different languages? Like, should she or she start learning different languages or pick one and specialize on one?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing people should also understand is that the tech space it's vast. Like it's a lot, and there's a lot of stuff that is going on. Someone would say, C plus updated, but you'll actually find companies like Oracle or Microsoft they're still using C plus plus or C sharp, right? So one thing I usually advise someone is just pick what interests you and run with it, right? Personally, I wouldn't be given much opportunities as an Angular developer as other companies outside, because maybe I don't know, for obvious reasons. Maybe probably some of them don't really trust the stack, or probably it's the negative connotation that comes with Angular JS, which is totally okay if that's how they think. That's up to them. But I know there's been some time when I've been thinking like maybe I should move to React, right? And it's okay to learn React. It's not a problem. Right? But I wanted to really first of all focus on something so that I can get good at it. Not necessarily an expert, but at a point whereby I can actually have a conference, right? Just talk about Angular, right? And with that, of course, like I'm not gonna lie, there's 100% chance that whatever language you're going to learn, there's a company out there that is looking for it. What you just need to do is you need to go there and learn, and search for these companies and make sure that you've prepared yourself fully for you to be able to take on the interviews. So just pick anything that you're interested in and just run with it.
Okay, so there is a question from Erika Wanja. How did you manage to consistently run the club? And were there days you felt like quitting?
Okay. Yeah. So one thing was, first of all, was the team. Right? The team was like, I'm not gonna lie, like it was such an amazing team because each and everyone had a role to play. Because I know as a leader, you might feel that obligation, like doing everything by yourself. Because like these people are very slow, but you need to give people like a grace period to trust them with the work that you're giving them. So what we used to do is delegate work. So we know this person is handling foods and drinks, this person is handling booking the classroom or booking the room. We have this particular person who is handling form registration and all that. So first of all, having a team who which you're going to delegate work for. And I had to also make sure that we have like a common agreement with the team members that we're going to have a session each and every Saturday or after every 2 Saturdays, right? Because one thing is, when it comes to when it comes to clubs, especially tech clubs, it's the consistency that plays a major role, right? So first of all, do like some sort of like survey, understand the students, like you want to attend sessions every weekend or after every 2 weeks, get to understand that feeling and the general feeling. And if the general feeling is that after every 2 weeks, yeah, then start scheduling events for that. And by that means when you schedule it, make sure you have speakers who have registered for them, making sure that everything is set. So that by the time it reaches the day of that particular session, if worse comes to worse, you have a backup. So yeah, so planning and delegation really plays a major role when it comes to consistency.
Okay, we also have a question from Grace, and she's
Yeah.
asking, have you ever had an issue of mixing and confusing syntaxes? Like, for example, when you're learning two languages,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Python and Kotlin or Java.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think was when I was learning JavaScript, I used to mix it a lot with Python, because when I was doing natural language processing back in Ashesi, like you were writing a machine learning algorithm using Python, and so I used to write the syntax the same way as JavaScript, and I used to get errors, and I was wondering like what's happening. Then I came back. Sometimes I even take the code to a friend, because I in my head I'm like I'm right, right. So I take it to my friends like, hey, bro, why are you putting this over here? Why are you adding so many colons for, I mean, semicolons and all that? But yeah, sometimes you get to have mix up of syntaxes if you're working with different programming languages, and it's totally fine, because yeah, if you're doing a lot of stuff at the same time, you are prone to mixing them up.
Okay, we also have a question from Belize, and she's asking,
Yeah.
what are the strengths you think? I think this more of like what strengths makes a developer stand out among other developers.
Okay. Strength. Yeah. So when it comes to strength, one thing is I think it's perseverance. So also another, I think I probably need to answer the question by Grace, was that did was it Grace, or I can't really remember, but it was about if I was quitting, right? Yeah, there was some time I actually felt like quitting because like I felt like it was too much. There's a time I had like a burnout, but one thing I had which like really stuck with me was that I'm not really doing this for me, but it's actually for the community. So if you are someone who's like can keep on the faith, right, I'm actually doing something good for the community, this will go a long way. And at the same time also being someone who can persevere, because there are times that you're going to have disappointments as a developer, right? And by that it means uh you think that, for example, your tech stack is solid, right? And you go to an interview and you feel like, hey, I've done it, I've won it, right? Then later on you find out like you get a rejection, and you start asking yourself like, what did I do wrong? And then at that point is when now you start probably cursing that particular company. Oh, these companies are looking for different people, I don't know, other people, blah blah blah, they didn't give me an opportunity. But rather is, okay, so if I didn't pass this particular this interview, right, what can I get out of it, right? Is there something that I did wrong? And at the same time, can I still persevere if, for example, I get another rejection, right? I'm not saying that you should um always be happy when you get rejected, but rather take it as a learning point, because again, that I think that's actually the most important strength as a developer, is you being one who is always in learning, and that is learning from your mistakes, learning from your peers, learning from tutorials, and having that mindset of yeah.
Okay. So we have a question from Little Genius Tech, and he's asking, I think he's running some startup, and he's asking on advice on how to look people who will help you to run the startup or manage it. Yeah.
Okay. This is a tricky one. Okay, so I would think for me, one thing is for sure is also you need to understand that the tech space has completely changed, and by that I mean um, developers have different skill sets, and at the same time they might have different demands per se, right? So I think one thing is, for first of all, you need to assess First of all, you as a community, I mean, or you as a company, like what resources do you have? Like, if you have this amount of money that you're going to give them, like X amount of money they're going to give them, probably give them some perks and all that. Like, I don't know, probably you can buy them a laptop, or you'd give them 20,000 shillings for buying, I don't know, a laptop which they can top up with, right? One thing is for sure is whenever you're looking for talent, always have such perks in place. That is according to your resources. I'm not saying that you should always have a lot of money, according to your resources. And find people who are going to be, first of all, deeply interested in the vision of that particular company, and making sure that the people who are like goal driven, while at the same time the people who are open minded, in the sense that you can learn from each other, not just people, I don't know, talking over each other. Oh, I have this idea, it's better than yours, but then actually building on top of other people's ideas. So I think that's one of those are the main things that you should look for when you are looking for people who can help you in doing that. Yeah.
Okay. We also have a question from Juliet, and she's asking, as a student, how do I showcase the project I'm
Okay.
working on, or what do potential future recruiters or interviewers really look for in those projects? Also, to this question from the same person, she was asking, how do I
Mhm.
get communities to volunteer in?
Oh, how do you get community to volunteer? Okay, so let me just start with the last one. So how to get which communities to volunteer in? Of course, uh, with the pandemic, things have changed. Things are happening online, but slowly and slowly, things are opening up. If you live in Nairobi, there's a high chance that like there are a lot of events that are happening at iHub or other spaces in Nairobi, and most of them are held on Saturdays. I should presume. I know like tech communities like what's the name of the tech community? Atlassian. Yeah, they should be having sessions on Saturdays. Sometimes just pop into iHub on Saturdays and see if there are any tech communities happening. Like you'll definitely see a signpost saying this community is meeting in this room, this community is meeting in this room. So just take a walk if you're in Nairobi. But apart from that, follow actually also follow techies, because these techies have access to these small communities, and there's a higher chance that they will retweet a tweet from a community asking, for example, for volunteers. Yeah, and even if, for example, right, we are on developer stories, right, this is actually a community which you can volunteer in. For example, if they're not really asking for a volunteer, you can tell them like, hey, I have this particular skill set, I think I can help you with it. Probably I can help you manage social media, I can help you uh, get more developers to come and share the stories, right? So just pitch these ideas to even some of these communities that you know of. And yeah, you never know, that can actually be a start of something. Yeah, and onto this question, showcase projects. So of course GitHub is very important so that people can actually see what you're doing, but also at the same time is your portfolio. Like I can't even lie about this. Portfolio sells you a lot more than your CV does, because the first thing that recruiters look at was, okay, what have you actually done? Like, what projects have you built? Like with the company that I'm going to be joining on Monday, the recruiter told me that, wow, you actually have a nice portfolio. Like, how do you do it? How do you do all these? And like that's when I actually start breaking it down for them, right? Because the first thing they looked at was my portfolio. They didn't even ask for my CV at all. Because one thing is like they've seen that the work experience that you have, because your portfolio also has that. They've seen the projects that you've had. I mean, you've done, and they know the stack that you're using, and that's when you actually get to shine, because you have tons of projects, you have links to them. So make sure if you have a project you've done, make sure you host it somewhere, right? Like there are tons of free hosting sites. There's Netlify, there's Vercel, there's Cloud, which you can host for free. And yeah, just always showcase them out there, put them on portfolio, and also have that portfolio on your LinkedIn, on your Twitter, right? Because that's gonna be like your website. And yeah, what else? But it's, apart from that, also, yeah, share it with your friends. If you think like, oh, if you think like this person can help you get a job, share it with them and tell them like, hey, this is actually what I'm working on. I mean, this is my portfolio. If you have anyone who's looking for a developer, I'm available for hire. Or even at the same time, if you're building a project, share it with people on Twitter, on WhatsApp. Personally, I love sharing what I do with people because I know it will help them at some point. And I share it on Twitter, like, hey guys, I'm working on this particular project. Could you give me a few pointers on what I could do? What can I add? What can I remove? And sharing with this also opens you up to many people who are really interested in what you do. And yeah, use hashtags like 100 days of code. 100 days of code is repeated with like more, I think like 5 bots on Twitter. So there's a high chance to reach many people. And yeah, recruiters look for the work that you've done. So that's the most important thing. The work you've done, and for some of them, they'll look at probably the number of years you've worked at a particular company or total number of companies that you've worked
Okay, we have a question from Catherine, and she's
with.
asking if you had a chance to go back in
Yeah.
time, like what would you have done either different or have changed?
All right. Personally, I will never change anything because it's through the things that probably I messed up with is when I learned about how to do it. I learned it first of all, at the same time how to make it better. Because as a human being in general, right, we learn from different things, right? Friends, we learn through our deeds or whatever. And what matters is how would you approach it? So, for example, if you fail at something, how would you approach it? Like, would you, I don't know, wallow in self pity, or I don't know, dust yourself up and like, yeah, okay, that's life. Like, that's how we do it. Anyway, we move, and probably you forge ahead and making sure that you don't repeat the same mistake. So, I wouldn't even do anything different because it is true that I've learned a lot of stuff that have built me to be the developer or the tech community lead that I am today. Yeah, personal. That's a personal thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we have a question from Michelle, and she's
Yeah.
asking, how do you stay relevant to the tech skills in the tech space?
That takes okay. So this is goes hand in hand with the tech stack that you choose or the technologies that you choose. And for example, if you choose say React or Angular, right? Of course you follow the Angular channel, I mean the Angular Twitter account or the React Twitter account because they always show you updates and all that. And at the same time, also you follow developers or GDEs or people who are just experts in that particular technology. There's a higher chance that they'll also share with you. I mean, they'll just share with their with Twitter like some of the technical advancements. At the same time, you could follow other channels like for mobile phones or that tech stack in general. You know, like those accounts that are specifically suited for or specifically developed for sharing news about tech. So about yeah, so that that is virtually or online. When it comes to physically, is attend events if you get the chance. If you have an opportunity to probably join, I don't know, a meetup, join them because the higher chance they're going to talk about something new, like what is happening out there. Like for example, Google developer groups very soon will start handling. I mean, they'll start doing Google I/O extended. So that's also an opportunity for you to even learn about what is happening with regards to technology, right? That is like the different Google technologies. And yeah, articles. Yeah, so whatever blog you're using, whether it's dev.to, whether it's Hashnode, just pick one and then also and be articles because in their newsfeed there's a higher chance that they'll always be sharing. I mean, the newsfeed will always have the latest news appearing. So
Okay, we also have a question from Akal, and this is
okay,
more of like challenges of being a front end developer. Yeah.
okay. So I think one of the challenges that I personally faced was that there's some companies which they will say that are looking for a front-end developer, right? And specifically Angular. But then when it comes to the interview, they ask you questions about a backend developer, and you don't even know where to start because you're like, wait, I thought this was strictly for Angular. And there's that thing of they'll ask you, oh, do you know how to use AWS? Do you know how to do GCP? Right? And maybe you just know the basics, right? But then they want you to have like this full stack knowledge. And I personally feel like that could be a problem for some companies because you don't advertise for a front end developer role, but then when it comes to the interview, you're giving past someone a technical test that is kind of like a full stack, right? You should tell them like it's a full stack developer role, and these are like the interview questions will be asked. But anyway, probably that's my experience. But yeah, I think that's one of the key challenges that I've faced as a front end developer. Oh, sorry, probably I missed it wrong. Front end side of a web app. uh, okay, this is just to add on to that. So as a front end, also writing code for front end, I think challenge has been responsiveness, and not just responsiveness like media queries and all that, but it's actually responsiveness for different browsers. Because today you will test your responsiveness, right? Like using media queries with Chrome. Tomorrow you put it on Safari and it's different, right? So I think that's one of the challenges that we are having currently as front-end developers with regards to web, because you might develop for web applications like, oh yeah, this thing is solid. You have things like on a Flexbox, but then immediately that person opens up that website on a Safari browser or iOS phone, right? It just looks something like, I don't know. It's like something you've just taken and that's just thrown in over there in your code and like it's just working. That is one of the challenges. So I think it's that opportunity, or that chance to develop something that is going to be available for all browsers. Yeah.
Okay, it seems that like there's no any other question. So for those who are interested in watching Wayne's journey with the Six Google developer journey, so we'll put the link on the description, then you can watch it later. Yeah. So from there, I think Andrew, you can take it from here.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible enough. So this has really been a good session. Wow, there's a lot that I've learned myself from the conversation. I mean, this is one of the sessions that we actually were looking forward to. So I'm really grateful. I'm really thankful for Wayne for coming up again, for providing us with your journey. And I guess there are a lot of people I can see on the chat, in the chat section. Even we didn't need to ask, like you covered everything for them, and that's for us shows like somebody has been able to learn something new from you as well. So we want to thank you. We want also to thank the speakers, sorry, the attendees who attended this event, those who have been participating actively on the chat session, on the live chat session. So they have been good attendees. They have been here with us since the beginning, and so we want to thank them as well. Yeah. So as Theo said earlier on, we want to be holding these events more now. So if you want to get any news or updates about new coming events, you can also follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter as Developer Stories Africa. You can also follow us on Instagram at Developer Stories Africa as well. Actually, follow us here on YouTube for at Developer Stories Africa as well. So these are our official like channels, social channels for posting out events or other, uh, yeah, basically events. So this has been a great session. I don't have anything on my end, but just to thank you for uh, availing yourself and coming up with all by answering also these questions that has been asked by some of these attendees. So it's really been great. I've enjoyed it personally on my end. Yeah, so for that, I would love to welcome also one of us called Donald. Donald, kindly unmute yourself and he will take it from here, maybe end the session. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you to the attendees who showed up for the event. I also want to thank Wayne for his very inspiring story in tech, and how he has helped a lot of developers in developer communities. I think for that, that's a conclusion of today's session.
Okay, before we conclude, I think what has stood out for me is learning never ends. Keep learning. As you heard from Wayne, he's just been learning from the first time up to now, he's still learning. So just keep learning. Then there was a question from Juliet concerning communities. I think also communities, being consistent in communities will give you a chance to volunteer in a community. Sometimes you can't just walk into a community for the first time and you want to volunteer on that first day. Yeah, so being consistent will help you a lot. Also, thank you, Wayne, for showing up and sharing your story. Thanks
Yeah,
a lot.
thank you. And thank you for having me. Yeah, and always it's an honor being here. And thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to share my story with everyone. And yeah, and definitely if you feel like you want to reach out, just definitely reach out to me on Twitter. Yeah, I answer I answer to DM. So don't feel shy. By the way, one thing people should know is that trust me, like we developers are human beings. We're just like you and we're learning stuff. Right. So don't ever feel afraid of approaching a developer and asking them a question because we've in one way or the other we've been where you are right now, and there's no need to be shy to ask someone a question. So always ask questions if you have.
I think from there we can end it, and then for the audience, check out our social media handles, and then you will get updates on our event. So, bye everyone. Thanks, Wayne.
All right, thank you, bye.